She was fast asleep when her husband snatched what he thought was her $10 million ticket and fled, completely unaware it was nothing but a blank slip. By the time he returned, something unbelievable had happened. "I took the lottery ticket and I'm gone for good." That's what he wrote in the note, convinced he'd stolen her $10 million. But when he later opened his bag that night, it was just a blank piece of paper. And by the time he came back, something unbelievable had happened. Before we dive in, remember to subscribe for more intriguing stories, and please like and share. They say money changes people, but sometimes it just reveals who they truly were all along. The rain had just stopped when Sarah stood in the kitchen, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it echoing off the tiles. She clutched the lottery ticket in one hand, staring at the numbers on her phone in the other, checking them again and again. She wasn't dreaming. Not this time. "Mark," she called, breathless, her voice trembling. "Come quick." He walked in slowly, wiping his hands with a dish towel. "What's wrong?" She looked at him, eyes wide, her voice barely a whisper. "We won the lottery. $10 million. For a second, Mark didn't react. He just blinked, then forced a wide smile. "Are you serious?" Sarah nodded, her hands shaking as she placed the ticket on the table between them. "Every number, it's all here. We're millionaires, Mark." He pulled her into a hug, a little too firm, and whispered, "That's incredible." But behind her back, his eyes weren't smiling. They were calculating. Sarah didn't notice. She was already crying happy tears, talking fast about what they could finally do, pay off their mortgage, help her sister, maybe open that small bakery she'd always dreamed of. Mark said all the right things, but his mind wasn't with her. It was on the drawer beside the bed, where she always kept important things. As Sarah dreamed of a future together, Mark began planning his escape. They say when some men smile, it's not joy, it's strategy. Later that evening, the living room buzzed with possibilities. Sarah sat cross-legged on the couch, a notepad in hand, scribbling ideas for how they'd use the money. Her face was glowing, her voice filled with gratitude. "We could finally fix the roof, maybe send your mom on that vacation she's always wanted." Mark chuckled from the armchair, sipping whiskey. Yeah, sure. We can do all that." But his eyes didn't match his laugh. They were distant, unfocused, watching her and something else entirely. Sarah kept talking. "I mean, it's life-changing, right? 10 million. It's like a dream. I still can't believe it." He nodded slowly. "Me neither." That night, she placed the ticket back in the drawer, the one she always kept locked. But she didn't lock it this time. She was too excited, too trusting. She kissed Mark's forehead, whispered, "Good night," and went to bed with her heart full. Mark remained on the couch, staring at the ceiling. When he finally stood, he moved quietly. He walked to the bedroom door and listened, soft breathing, deep sleep. Then he walked to the drawer and pulled it open just a crack. There it was, the lottery ticket tucked between some old papers. He didn't take it. Not yet. But the sight of it changed something in him. His jaw clenched. His breathing slowed. In his mind, one phrase began to repeat, "You don't get second chances like this twice." He closed the drawer, walked away, and smiled to himself in the mirror. But this time, the smile didn't even try to hide the lie. He could have walked into the future with her. Instead, he chose the exit. It was 2:13 a.m. The only sound in the house was the faint ticking of the wall clock. Sarah slept soundly, a faint smile still on her face. Mark was wide awake. He moved like a shadow, every step measured, quiet, careful. A duffel bag sat open on the bed, clothes, toiletries, cash, all packed. Now, only the prize remained. He crept to the drawer, heart pounding, and gently opened it. He scanned the papers inside, receipts, a birthday card, an old bank statement, and then a folded slip with numbers on it. He didn't think twice. He grabbed it, shoved it into his bag, and closed the drawer without noticing the real ticket, still tucked beneath a utility bill just below. He reached for the pen and paper beside the lamp. In rushed handwriting, he scrawled, "I'm leaving with your lottery ticket. I'm tired of this miserable life with you. Don't bother looking for me. I'm gone for good." He didn't even sign it, just folded it and placed it carefully on the pillow beside her. He stood for a moment, staring at her sleeping figure. But there was no remorse, only satisfaction. He slung the bag over his shoulder and walked out the door, not knowing he'd just traded $10 million for a blank piece of paper. While he stepped into the night feeling rich, fate was smiling, waiting to show him just how poor he really was. She thought the worst thing that could happen was losing the ticket. But what hurt more was losing the man who never truly loved her. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting soft streaks across the bed. Birds chirped faintly outside, the city slowly stirred awake. It was supposed to be a morning of celebration, starting with breakfast in bed, laughter, and maybe a silly internet search. What do you do when you win the lottery? But when Sarah stretched and reached for her phone, she felt something strange under her pillow, a piece of paper. She sat up slowly, heart skipping. It was Mark's handwriting. Her smile faded as she read each word aloud. "I'm leaving with your lottery ticket. I'm tired of this miserable life with you. Don't bother looking for me. I'm gone for good." Her lips trembled. Her chest tightened. No, this has to be a joke," she whispered. She called out, "Mark!" Silence. She rushed out of bed, checked the bathroom, empty. Kitchen untouched. His shoes by the door, gone. The coat he wore when they first met, missing. Gone. Just like that. Tears filled her eyes as she leaned against the kitchen counter, shaking. Her husband of 5 years, the man she cooked for, cried with, prayed for, had stolen from her and left her behind like garbage. Not even a goodbye, just cruelty. "I don't understand," she whispered through tears. "Why now? Why this way?" She looked down at the note again. The part that cut deepest wasn't the stolen ticket. It was, "I'm tired of this miserable life with you." That line didn't just bruise, it crushed. She had dreamed of giving him the world, and he ran from it like she was a burden. For 10 minutes, she cried on the floor, the kind of cry that makes no sound, just shakes the body and drains the soul. Then something flickered, a small voice in her heart, soft but steady, checked the drawer. She sat up, wiped her face, and looked down the hallway at the drawer where she'd last kept the ticket. Slowly, she stood, because sometimes the same drawer that holds your heartbreak also holds your freedom. He took everything, or so he thought. But fate had one last surprise waiting in the drawer. Sarah walked slowly down the hallway, her body still trembling. The house felt like a shell now, familiar walls, familiar air, but suddenly hollow, like everything warm had vanished when he walked out the door. Her bare feet pressed against the wooden floor as she approached the small bedside drawer. The drawer she always used for important things, passports, receipts, certificates, and the ticket. The ticket she held with trembling joy just hours ago, the same one he claimed to have taken. She stopped in front of it, staring like it was some kind of tomb. Part of her didn't want to open it. She feared the emptiness, the finality of finding it gone. But that voice, that strange little nudge in her chest, said again, "Check." With a breath, she slowly pulled the drawer open. And there it was, folded, sitting quietly beneath a water bill and an old recipe card, the lottery ticket, the real one, untouched. Sarah blinked once, twice, not believing her eyes. She picked it up gently, checking the numbers, the same ones she'd memorized, the same one she'd matched. $10 million. Still hers. Still here. Her hand went to her mouth as a sound escaped, part laugh, part sob, part disbelief. "He didn't even check," she whispered. "He took the wrong paper." She dropped to her knees, laughing through tears. The same drawer he thought held his new beginning had tricked him. She looked over at the note again on the floor, shaking her head. He ran with nothing. And in that instant, something changed inside her. The heartbreak was still there, yes, but underneath it, power. He left thinking he had stolen everything, but what he really stole was an old receipt. And what she kept was her freedom, her fortune, and her future. Sarah stood up straighter, wiped her tears. No more begging. No more chasing. Only one word remained in her heart now: leave. He thought he'd outsmarted her, but the only thing he outsmarted was himself. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, the ticket in one hand and a crumpled piece of paper in the other, the note he left. Her eyes moved back and forth between them, piecing together what had happened. She opened the drawer wider, curiosity now replacing sorrow. She carefully shuffled through the rest of the contents, and then she saw it, a second paper, folded sloppily, slightly torn at the edge, an old appointment reminder from her dentist. That was what he had taken. She held it up, realizing it was the same thickness, same fold as the lottery slip. In his haste, Mark had grabbed the first paper he saw and ran, assuming victory. She let out a dry chuckle. That's what you left me for. The absurdity of it all hit her at once. He had betrayed their marriage, their memories, and the woman who stood beside him during job losses, illness, and unpaid bills. All for a blank scrap of paper. No letter, no closure, no goodbye, just greed and a mistake. Sarah stood up slowly and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were tired, but something new flickered behind them. Something fierce. She looked down at the winning ticket in her hand and nodded to herself. You didn't take anything from me, Mark, she said quietly. You gave me something. A clean break and 10 million reasons to never look back. She folded the real ticket and slipped it into a new place, not in a drawer, but inside her purse, zipped and locked. Then she picked up her phone, the lottery office, the real estate agent, the travel site. One by one, she began making moves. He ran from her, thinking he'd won, but all he really did was set her free. He thought this was the start of his freedom. But freedom built on betrayal never lasts long. The taxi rolled to a stop in front of the seaside hotel, sleek glass walls, golden lighting, and the scent of imported eucalyptus wafting through the revolving doors. Mark stepped out with the swagger of a man who'd just escaped his own boring life. He wore dark sunglasses, a fresh shirt, and a cocky half-smile that hadn't left his face since he slipped out of the house. Duffel bag in hand, he walked into the lobby like royalty, returning from exile. Reservation for Kane, he said to the receptionist with a charming grin. The woman at the desk typed a few things and smiled back. Welcome, Mr. Kane. We have you in our top-floor suite, Ocean View. 2 nights for now, correct? Let's make it 4, he said, patting his bag. I've got plans. As he was handed the key card, he already began fantasizing. This was just the beginning, a warm-up for the life ahead, private jets, Italian villas, a sports car or two, and women, the kind who didn't ask questions or care about love. He laughed to himself in the elevator. Sarah will wake up and realize she's been outplayed. She never saw it coming. When he entered the suite, the curtains were already drawn wide, revealing the ocean waves crashing gently in the distance. He tossed the bag on the bed, kicked off his shoes, and opened the minibar. Here's to me, he muttered, clinking a small bottle of champagne against the glass. To no more stress, no more boring dinners, no more pretending. He pulled out the folded paper from the inner pocket of his duffel bag, the one he believed held his entire future. He kissed it. Lita, he whispered. My new life. With dramatic flair, he unfolded it to take one last look at his golden ticket and froze. Blank. His eyes scanned it again. No numbers, no logo, just a faint, smudged reminder about Dr. Elaine. Thursday, 10:30 a.m. He blinked, then blinked again. What? He ripped open the bag and began pulling everything out: shirts, toiletries, power bank, socks, but no lottery ticket. Just that one worthless paper. No, 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 he hissed. His heart began to race. This wasn't victory. This wasn't revenge. This was a miscalculation with a $10 million price tag. Mark staggered back onto the bed, holding the paper in both hands, staring at it like it might change if he stared hard enough. But it didn't. He hadn't won. He'd just run from the only person who truly cared. The problem with stolen dreams is they don't belong to you. Mark sat motionless on the edge of the hotel bed, the worthless slip of paper crumpled in his hand. His confident smirk had drained away, replaced by confusion, then dread. He unfolded it again, still blank, still meaningless. "Where is it?" he muttered, voice rising with each syllable. He yanked the bag back onto his lap and unzipped every pocket. First the main compartment, his shirts, a half-empty cologne bottle, a phone charger. Nothing. Then the side pockets, hotel receipts, breath mints, an old lighter. Still nothing. No. No, this can't be right, he whispered. He tore open the bottom zipper where he had originally stuffed what he thought was the ticket. His hands moved wildly now, panicked, pulling every piece of fabric inside out. Nothing but lint and shame. Mark dropped the bag and stood up, pacing the room like a caged animal. He ran his hands through his hair, then turned to the nightstand and grabbed the note he had written to Sarah. "I took the ticket," he read aloud bitterly, mocking himself. "Tired of this miserable life, gone for good." He chuckled, but it wasn't laughter. It was the hollow kind of noise a man makes when life punches him in the gut. He grabbed his phone, opened his messages, and stared at Sarah's contact. He wanted to call, to say something, anything. But what could he say? "Hey, I left you in our marriage in the middle of the night because I thought I took your money, but I actually just took your dental reminder." He threw the phone onto the bed. This was supposed to be the start of his new life. But all he'd packed was guilt and failure. He slumped back down on the mattress, the slip of paper falling from his hand onto the floor. For the first time in years, Mark wasn't thinking about what he wanted. He was thinking about what he'd lost: Sarah, her smile, her loyalty, her excitement last night when she said, "We won, not I." And now she probably hated him. Worse, she probably pitied him. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, mocking circles. There was no money, no grand escape, only silence and a very expensive mistake. The silence on the other end of the phone was louder than any insult she could have spoken. Mark stared at his phone as if it were the last lifeline left in the world. The contact name, Sarah Red Heart. That heart used to mean something. Now it just looked like a cruel emoji mocking him. He hovered his thumb over the call button, breathed in, and tapped. It rang once, twice. His leg bounced nervously. "Pick up. Pick up. Please pick up." Straight to voicemail. He cursed under his breath and ended the call. Waited 5 seconds. Tried again. This time it rang longer. His heart dared to hope. Then click. Voicemail again. "Sarah," he said quickly, trying to sound casual. "Hey, it's me. Look, I know this is sudden, but I think we should talk. Something went wrong. Just call me, okay? Please." He ended the call and tossed the phone on the bed again. A moment passed. He grabbed it and texted instead, "Can we talk? It's important. Please." 3 dots appeared. His pulse jumped. Then they disappeared. He called again. Voicemail. "Damn it, Sarah," he barked, standing up and pacing the room. "Don't do this. You can't just freeze me out." He tried her WhatsApp. Nothing. Facebook Messenger. Read. No reply. Instagram. She had unfollowed him. He opened their shared Google Drive folder. Files gone. Closed access. His heart pounded louder than the crashing ocean outside his window. She was gone. And not in a panic, but with precision. It dawned on him, she wasn't shocked anymore. She was done. And he wasn't just the man who tried to steal her money. He was the fool who failed. He slumped onto the bed, staring at his reflection in the dark TV screen. His own eyes looked back, not victorious, not powerful, not free, just empty. The clock ticked loudly in the silence. He sent one more message, just 2 words. I'm sorry. But even as he hit send, he knew she wasn't reading it. And if she was reading it with the confidence of a woman who already knew the ticket was never in his hands. Because her future never depended on him. He thought leaving her would destroy her, but all he really did was set her free. Sarah stood at the edge of the city bus terminal, her suitcase beside her, the early morning mist curling around her coat. She wore a simple hoodie, hair tucked into a cap, no makeup, no jewelry, just invisibility. And that's exactly how she wanted it. No one would suspect the quiet woman at Gate 7 of carrying a ticket worth $10 million. She had left no trace behind, no goodbye text, no calls, no social media posts. Even the neighbors hadn't seen her leave. Just a soft morning, a taxi at dawn, and a one-way trip out of a life that nearly buried her. Inside her coat pocket, folded neatly in a small envelope, was the lottery ticket, the real one. It was time to claim it. 3 hours later, Sarah sat in the backseat of a rideshare vehicle outside the regional lottery office. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the envelope to her chest, not from fear, but from the weight of what this moment meant. Everything was about to change. When she walked in, the woman at the front desk gave her a polite smile. Good morning. Can I help you? Yes, Sarah said softly. I think I just want a new life. She handed over the envelope. The woman opened it, scanned the numbers, then looked back up. Ma'am, she said, stunned, I need to get my supervisor. Within the hour, it was official, confirmed, verified, $10 million. Sarah signed the documents under a new mailing address, gave instructions for her lawyer to be the point of contact, and requested that her identity be kept confidential. She didn't want the spotlight. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted peace and a life where no one could walk out with her happiness ever again. As she walked back outside, the sky looked clearer than she remembered. For the first time in years, the air felt light. Not because she was rich, but because she was no longer tied to someone who only saw her value in dollars. She opened her phone. No missed calls. Just one unread message from an unknown number. Please, Sarah, just talk to me. She stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Because sometimes healing means never responding. Sometimes power is silence. She didn't just rise. She rebuilt on her own terms. 2 months later, the moving truck pulled up to a quiet neighborhood nestled in the hills outside the city. The sun painted golden streaks across the roof of a freshly purchased 2-story house, white with navy shutters, a wraparound porch, and wide windows that invited peace into every corner. Sarah stood at the gate, holding the keys in her hand. No paparazzi, no attention, just a lawyer who followed her instructions to the letter, every document signed, every purchase clean and quiet. She hadn't used her married name. She didn't need it anymore. Inside the house, the air smelled like new paint and polished floors. The furniture was still being arranged, but the space already felt like hers. There was no trace of betrayal here. No drawer holding broken dreams. Only room to breathe and bloom. In the kitchen, Sarah unpacked a small box labeled Hope Project. It wasn't just her life she wanted to rebuild. It was time to give women like her a second chance, the ones abandoned, underestimated, or made to feel small. A week later, she signed the lease on a small office downtown. She named the charity Second Bloom, a foundation dedicated to helping women restart their lives after emotional and financial abuse. Counseling, housing support, skills training, legal advice, no lectures, no pity, just power passed from one survivor to another. And when the press asked who was behind it, her response was simple: just a woman who remembers what it felt like to have nowhere else to go. She didn't need to tell them about Mark. She didn't need to tell them about the drawer. Her silence made the statement louder than any speech. In private, she made other moves: investments in real estate, a trust fund for future daughters she hadn't even had yet, and quiet donations to shelters in cities she'd never even lived in. It wasn't about publicity. It was about purpose. Every night she sat on the porch of her new home, watching the stars stretch out over the hills, sipping tea with her peace intact. He took nothing from her. He just freed her hands to build something greater. There were still moments she thought about the note he left, the cowardice of it, the emptiness, but the feeling didn't sting anymore, because now she knew exactly who she was. And no man could take it from her. She didn't chase fame. But healing has a way of shining even when you try to hide. The magazine sat on every cafe table across the city, its glossy cover catching the sunlight and turning heads. In large, bold letters at the top, it read, "From betrayal to billionaire, the woman who disappeared and then changed lives." And there she was, Sarah. Not in a designer dress, not in heavy makeup or diamond jewelry, just a soft pastel blouse, natural hair pulled into a bun, and a smile that didn't try too hard because it didn't need to. The photo had been taken outside her charity's headquarters. She hadn't even known the journalist was taking the shot until after the interview ended. Inside the magazine, her story unfolded like something from a film: a quiet wife, a sudden lottery win, a husband who vanished into the night. In a twist that stunned readers across the region, he took a piece of paper and ran, the article read. But the real treasure stayed behind with the woman he underestimated. The article didn't name Mark. Sarah had insisted on that. It wasn't about him. It was about rising. It covered the launch of Second Bloom, her vision to fund shelters in 3 neighboring cities, and the hundreds of women her foundation had already supported, many of whom now worked as mentors and staff. There was even a sidebar with testimonies: "She gave me more than money. She gave me dignity. I never thought someone would understand. Then I met her. She turned her pain into purpose, and we're all better for it." Across the city, people who had once passed her by without a glance were now pointing at her photo in admiration. Bankers, politicians, TV presenters, they all wanted to meet the woman who had quietly become a symbol of grace and strength. But Sarah didn't let it go to her head. She still arrived at the foundation every morning by 9 a.m., made coffee for her staff, and reviewed every application by hand. The only real change? Her inbox now overflowed with speaking invitations, donation offers, and business proposals. She accepted none. She wasn't looking to be famous. She was just whole. That evening, as she sat on her porch again, a neighbor passed by with the magazine in hand. "Is this really you?" the woman asked, grinning. Sarah smiled. "Depends who you ask." They both laughed. Then the woman leaned in and whispered, "Whoever hurt you, they must be kicking themselves." Sarah said nothing, but deep down she knew. He didn't just lose money. He lost the kind of woman men don't get twice. He ran from a life he thought was worthless. Now he stood before it, vanished, sold, and no longer his. Mark shuffled down a cracked sidewalk in a forgotten corner of the city. His clothes wrinkled, his shoes worn at the heel. The collar of his coat turned up against the cold. But it wasn't winter that made him shiver. It was regret. In his hand, folded and unfolded so many times it looked like parchment, was the same slip of paper he had stolen that night. A meaningless note, faded now from time, sweat, and his own trembling fingers. He still carried it as if the act of holding it could rewind time. He didn't know where he was going anymore. The hotel had asked him to leave weeks ago when the deposit ran dry. Friends had stopped replying. Job applications? No callbacks. The charm he once wore like cologne had long since worn off. Now only silence greeted him. He stopped at a small park bench not far from a school playground. Children ran by, their laughter echoing the kind of life he'd never known how to build. Mark sat down slowly and opened the paper one more time, as if, just maybe, it would say something different. But no, still blank.